Okay, so in this session, this is session 4, we only have 2 more. I'd kind of like to solidify or get the main words for a, we either call it an invitation, as this is called an invitation, and more churches are coming back to that, where they're doing an invitation. This is their invitation to the community. If you go on to Green Street United Methodist Church in Winston-Salem, they have an invitation as well. That's very well written, that kind of identifies them when you look into the words, or a mission statement. I'm leaning more toward an invitation. And then we as a congregation really take that invitation seriously and claim it as this is who we are, this is how we identify ourselves to the community, this is what we put on our website and our Facebook. And when we plan, we look at our invitation to say, are we actually reaching out to these people in this way?
Can you tell us again where that, how to reach that?
Excuse me?
How do we access that? You said Green Tree.
I said you can go, I said I was pointing out another church that does a good invitation, and that's Green Street United Methodist Church in Winston-Salem. And I looked up some others. Just look around. I'll tell you another church that has a good mission statement on their website and seems to really be caring about, and I would like to go visit them just because I think it would be fun to visit this church. It's Wesley United Methodist Church in Eugene.
They're awesome.
They have real clarity of who they are, what they're about, and they've done a good job with that. I'd like to, because of COVID, I haven't met the other ministers in the conference, but I would like to meet that person and that church. No, it's not the same as it. So we'll just kind of identify our main themes, and then I'll pull together 3 or 4 or 5 people, and then we'll put something together. And then in that session 5, we bring it back to you, so you can slice and dice. And I don't want to make the danger in that is we don't want to make this invitation of who we are, who we reach out, so generic it could fit any church. You do want to find that balance of really identifying yourself. So let's pray. A good and gracious God, help us to speak well and hear what one another has to say. Amen. Okay, so canoeing this mountain session 4. Let's go to the next slide. So in the email I sent to you all, I used this passage from the Gospel of Mark. When he came to Capernaum, and that would be Jesus, after some days it was reported that he was at home. So many gathered around, there was no longer room for them, not even in the front of the door, and he was speaking the word to them. Then some people came by, bringing to him a paralyzed man, carried by 4 of them. And when they could not bring him to Jesus because of the crowd, they removed the roof above, and after having dug through it, they let down the mat on which the paralytic lay. When Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralytic, "Son, your sins are forgiven." Now, I don't want to get too much into theology of that, with the sins and his illness, but it's ancient world stuff. But what I do want to concentrate on is a minor theme, that these friends of the paralytic had somebody that they needed to bring to Jesus, and that was their mission, bringing that person to Jesus. That was their objective. They were clear about it. They felt called to do that. The big challenge was how are they going to do it. They found an audacious way of doing it, audacious and creative. So what is their mission? To bring the paralytic friend to Jesus. And then, next slide. What follows is a challenge. How are they going to get him there? And I kind of think that's the way it is with the church right now. We identify, this is who we are, and then how are we going to get people to Jesus? All right? In our way that speaks to us. Okay, next slide. So what are we doing today? Looking for key words to build a mission statement and defining our challenge. Or let's say invitation. I think that's a better way of saying it, our invitation. Okay, next slide. And then, Jesus gave a mission to the church. It was called a commission, but it's the same thing. Before his ascension, Jesus gave his disciples a mission. And you all know what that is. It's from the Gospel of Matthew. Next slide. Go therefore and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything that I commanded you. So that's a really broad. That's the broad one for the global church. Next. So in a post-Christian world, this requires creativity and audacity. We are discovering the former ways of making disciples have become obsolete. So, like the friends of the paralytic, we need to find creative and audacious ways to bring people to Jesus. The next slide. So, I did lay this out in an email on last Monday morning, and this is what this comes from me in different readings, things I've read through the years. The key to a good mission statement or a good invitation, it is missional. It reminds the congregation that we work as a church, that our work as a church is to look outward. Would you all agree that a church's work is missional? That it's not to look within, but to look without. That doesn't mean we don't care for one another, but we really do. We have to look without, beyond ourselves, right? And then, second, it is defined by its current geographical surroundings. Its geographical surrounding, such as its neighborhoods and the city. Context is everything. So when Jesus sent out when the Holy Spirit came to the church is born, they're called to particular places. They have to be witnesses in Jerusalem and in Judea and Samaria. Those are 3 cities that they were called to early on. And I put the county offices there because that's part of our neighborhood. But I could have put, anything else geographically nearby there. Okay, next. 3, it reveals what makes the congregation tick. That is what gives it energy. It makes use of the congregation's gifts and strengths. Now, therefore, there are a variety of gifts, but the same Spirit, and there are varieties of services of the same Lord, and there are a variety of activities, but it's the same God who activates all of them in everyone. What I want to be careful about here is that I think it comes from being in a Western culture that really pushes us to get A's and be successful. And I'm really at fault of doing this through the years. That thinking God is calling us to do what we can't do. But I don't think that's true. I think God calls us to do what is within our means and that we can do. At 61, I'm tired of beating up on myself for not being able to do what I think needs to get done, and I can't do it. That maybe I need more humility to do things I actually can do and follow through on them. I mean, what kind of God is it that He's asking you to do things you can't carry off? But there are a lot of things we can do. But we go to those things and think, oh, we can't do, let's try to do this. And, so it reveals what makes the congregation tick. That is what gives it energy and makes use of its strengths and gifts and strengths. We want to do what we're made to do, not what we're not made to do. What are our strengths? What makes us tick, right? Okay, and then the last. A good congregational mission statement unifies the church. It clarifies its purpose. And then I'll read the passage. If then there is any encouragement in Christ, any consolation from love, any sharing in the Spirit, any compassion and sympathy, make my joy complete. Be of the same mind, having the same love, being in full accord and of one mind. I think it's fair for you to tell you the history that I'm coming out of in this last statement, and I really want you to hear me on this. And it's why I'm so careful. When I was in my 30s, I was in my 30s, a long time ago. I had a church in the inner city that was really struggling. It was in a middle part of Charlotte. Charlotte's a big city, it's about 2 million people. And that part of the neighborhood really was changing rapidly. Most of the people in my congregation were older white people who retired from those mills that had been shut down years earlier. And in that neighborhood, there were a lot of dilapidated mills, if you know what that looks like. The Catholic worker and other social service agencies were bringing a lot of Southeast Asian people who were refugees into that neighborhood. because of affordable housing and because we were along the major busing districts. And there were a lot of jobs in that area that they could take, because there were still some mills at that time, not anymore, that they were working in. And I lived next to the church. My kids were young, and it was a real sacrifice to live in that neighborhood because it was a rough neighborhood. And I saw all of these Asian people, some of them with Christian heritage, making their homes there. There were so many that were moving into that area. And I thought, what a wonderful outreach for the church, to reach out to these Cambodian and Hmong, the Laotian tribe, and bring them into the church. And with the help of the bishop's office, we actually, Sema Long, whom we're still friends with, had a Cambodian pastor that was becoming Methodist. He was changing to our denomination. And he worked alongside me. I brought it to the board to develop this church within our church as Cambodian. There are actually 2 Hmong congregations. I pushed it. And I brought it to the board, and they voted yes, but they voted yes because they felt guilty voting no. Because they knew that that's probably what they should do, but they did not want to do it. That's not how they thought of themselves. I saw it as their purpose. And we got it established. Sema Long was charismatic. We work well together. I like him, still like him. He's actually moved back to Cambodia. He's a United Methodist missionary. And after about 9 months, it blew up. It was my birthday. The bishop was called in. Because half the congregation was meeting off the side without my knowledge and breaking off. And it was going to plummet us financially. And I am a person that really feel like the finances of the institution are important. It scared the living crud out of me. I mean, I had the board chairperson leave, the finance person leave. I had one older guy who was a finance secretary, not the treasurer was leaving, that stayed. And although I thought it was what they should be doing, and it was my idea, and I thought it was very much the gospel, it's not what they wanted. It wasn't what they wanted. It was not their invitation. It was my invitation. And it made it even worse because they felt guilty about not coming along with me, which made it a little more vicious. And the lesson that I learned from that is that your invitation, your mission is really important, but it has to come from the congregation. And even if I think, oh, they should be doing this, if they're not with me, then it doesn't work. So I get a lot of ideas saying, well, what do you want to do? And I'm very hesitant to say it sometimes because then it becomes, this is what the pastor wants to do, this is what we have to do. And you may not want to do it. And so I promised myself after that when I went forward, I would make sure that it was coming from the congregation and that everybody, we were going together. I wasn't trying to bring people, drag them with me. And that congregation failed. That congregation, after I left, failed because they didn't want it. It was not part of their heritage. Their heritage was really white Southern gospel. White Southern gospel, even if it's in an Asian ministry, neighborhood, does not mix with that culture. That's just not who they were. It wasn't going to mix. So the church died, and it's now a black congregation, because that neighborhood changed quickly from one thing to the next. And then I was called back to that church, and we kind of had a ceremony, and I preached there, and it was good to see it kind of resurrected like a phoenix, but it was something different from what I did. But the Cambodian congregation ended up going downtown to First United Methodist Church, which was a large congregation, and they had more of a mentality for that. And then that Hmong congregation took over another church. So those congregations started in existence, but it didn't work where I started. It was a big mistake on my part. So I really wanted to help you understand my understanding. A lot of damage is done when ministers get in their mind what that's going to happen with that church. The congregation says, but we don't want it. So, does that give you some clarity as to where I'm coming from? Yeah, so I had to learn from that mistake as a young pastor. Okay, so those are the things that we have. If you'll cycle back, I'm going to briefly go back to that first key on Charlene. That one, go back another one, go back another one. Okay, so it reminds the congregation that we work as a church. That our work in church is to look outward. That's your invitation, is outward. Okay, next.
Which way am I
Go
going?
to 2. Is defined by its current geographical surroundings as context. Context is everything. That's very important. 3. It reveals what makes the congregation tick, what gives it energy. We're not looking at our losses, we're looking at what we do well. And then 4, and it clarifies our purpose. It helps me as your pastor know where you're at, so that when I lead you, I know you're coming along. And the board too, right? That I'm not going off on a tangent thinking, this is a really good idea, and you're thinking, I want to do it. All right? That doesn't mean I won't put ideas out to you, but you have to say to me, I don't think that's who we are. You have to be able to say it to me. And I may argue with you, but I argue with you all the time, and you still love me. That is one of the strengths about this congregation, is that we can go at it with each other. I have rarely had that experience in the South. It's more polite, but you all say what's on your mind, and I actually find it refreshing. I mean, you do. You just kind of tell me, and I tell you, and that's it. That's good. That's really very helpful. Okay, so go to the next one. So I'm just going to make it really simple today. In language, now I don't necessarily think all this fits our time period right now, but this is a really good, well-written invitation. Yeah. Beverly took it and she put it on, it's on your bulletin every week. Yeah, it's on the bulletin. I'm only putting it on the bulletin, not because I want you to adopt it, but because I think it's really well written. I think there are aspects of this that define us. I don't know, I think Mary was pointing this out on Monday, I don't know if the theological language is necessarily appropriate. Some of that theological language now, but it's really well written. It's good. It's nice to have out there. It's nicely written statement.
Would you want to read it?
It's on your bulletin. Just, maybe we get it every week. To all who mourn and need comfort, our invitation to all who mourn and need comfort, to all who are tired and need rest, to all who are friendless and want friendship, to all who are lonely and want companionship, to all who are homeless and want sheltering love, to all who pray, to all who do not but ought, to all who sin and need a Savior, and to whosoever will. The church opens wide its doors. In the name of Jesus our Lord is welcome. Can I tell them what you said on Monday morning? Because I thought it was actually quite funny.
Sure.
She said, to all who are homeless and want shelter and love. He said, well, I don't know about the homeless thing. Sometimes we throw the homeless off our porch. Which?
Only when they set fires.
What?
Only when they set
Only when they set fires. But I think...
The other thing I remember commenting on is it says people ought to pray, and it seemed like we were shooting on them.
It does sound like, that was a theological language that I was not real comfortable. It sounded like we were shooting on people.
If we just take that little bit off.
Okay. But, I mean, the church does do a lot with the cooking for the Kelly shelter, so I don't want to say that. All right, so I am going to do my best, because I'm a blabber. I'm going to try and really keep my mouth shut. And then I'll give you my ideas at the end, but I want to hear, so we'll complete that sentence. Somebody's got their hand raised. Yes, Kathy.
I like the word invitation. We do need to invite people, but in this demographic where we have so many older people and children that we could get to come to church, we need to back up that invitation with transportation and be able to say, hey, I'll pick you up, and I bless the people that are picking me up.
Yeah.
But we need to back it up.
Right. And I think that you can make that underlying point about everything. We, in this invitation, once again, we're not going to list activities. We're talking theology, because this is why this is so well written. I kind of would like to read to you like the one from some of the other churches that are good. There's nothing here about like your program or like what you're doing on Wednesday, right? This is theologically who you are.
Is this on a plaque outside?
It is.
It should be on our website.
Well, I don't have it on our website because you didn't even know it was there. No, I'm being serious. I mean, whatever you put on your website, it has to really identify you. So I didn't put it on there because people didn't know it really was there.
I
No,
know
I
that
didn't.
people knew it was there, but it was of what year, and that's when.
It was what?
What year?
How old?
Oh, but have you adopted that enough where you would want to put it on your website?
No.
Because I don't know if it identifies. Yeah, I mean, it's on there, but it's not like
Not
written
that way, no.
it's not like you keep that before you at your board at the board meetings and you have it in front of you for worship and stuff. I mean, I just pulled it out to show us a good example. It's right there on our wall. So I haven't put it on the website because I don't know if you want it.
No.
Why wouldn't you want it? It's an invitation to attend church.
Well, it's an invitation, but I don't agree with all the words.
Because why?
It's an invitation, or I like the invitation, but I get lost. Oh no, to my invitation that people who are lonely, people that to me the challenge is what I'm hearing is people do not know God. People who impression of God is one of judgment. Yeah, and it's people.
Now-
I think we've lost our way. That.
Now, Marie, you're hitting on something. We're getting to where we need to go. And I really don't want to, I'm just being really honest with you why I haven't put it up there, because I didn't feel like we had discussed it and claimed that particular statement.
Maybe it needs to wait till we're through with this process.
Exactly. So, but Marie is getting to something, I just kind of heard it in the subtext of what you were saying, the judgment thing. And you have a pastor who has really experienced that judgment. So, I think this is my opinion, in any mission statement for this congregation, and I have to say, I think your former pastors helped you with this. I think Bill probably helped you with this. I think you've been with it this way for a long time, gotten in this way a long time. Your mission statement this mission statement, Clip 92, I'm your pastor, should say something about being a place of non-judgment.
Yes.
I am your only pastor, I think I might be the only pastor in the Rogue Valley, because I've looked around, just to see if I know that has an openly gay pastor. And there's not been one, and I was nervous coming here, there's not been one person in this church that has ever said anything negative to me.
It's never said anything.
Never said anything negative.
You were one up on the women who came in as pastors.
I was what?
Women who came in as pastors got
Right.
a lot more.
But it's a non-judgment, and I think that's why, I'm not talking about activities, I'm talking theologically, that's not actually in this statement. And I think that would be remiss to adopt this and not have something about receiving people without judgment and trying to clarify that. Because that's very much who you've become.
Well, can't we take the bones of this and change them around, give them a shoulder replacement, and then...
Can I just say?
What?
I hear what you're saying, Cheryl, but the thing is, most mission statements that a church have, nobody knows anything about. They're in a file somewhere in the church. And if we work through this process and actually own the things that we want as a church, we're saying this is who we are.
James is exactly right.
That's a different thing than just, can we get a nice statement and put it on our website?
That James is exactly right. That's why I'm pushing you to spend time afternoon after worship and letting it be a little hard. because I want us to work for it and claim it as ours, right? Yeah.
Interesting, I think Marie was bringing up something that as I was reading down through, said the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items, lines, has nothing to do with a church as defined. It is just taking care of people. It's caring for them, people who are struggling, the homeless, that, and it isn't until the last 2 that they begin to theologically say, and you mentioned, it seems a bit, you should ought on people.
Well, I do feel like it oughts on people a little bit, that statement. I think there's another way to word that.
Right, but it's, I think many churches of today, they start with Jesus, and incidentally, we take care of these other things.
But maybe, Beth, that's why it's a well-written statement,
Yeah,
because that's what they do.
they get the other way, so it's a good format for us to keep in mind.
Yeah, did you hear what Beth was saying? Say it again, because I think you got a really great idea there.
I think that this invitation.
Yeah, take your mask off, because that was well said.
This invitation has a good format. Are we a church that says, you have to believe in Jesus, you have to do this behavior, you need to pray, or as this does, is that we take care of the mournful, we take care of the homeless, we are seeking to bring those people that.
And then you're saying then it funnels down to a theological
down
statement.
to, and this is something that we can include for.
It's the tail,
Yeah.
or maybe better than tail, that's not really good. It's kind of like, it's like the foundation.
The spine.
Yeah. Okay. So from our what we're talking about, are you okay with me putting non-judgment
Yeah.
as a key word within the statement? Did somebody say no? Oh, okay, non-judgment. Okay, that's a key word to keep in there. Non-judgment.
Judgmental.
Or I'll put an AL there. Non-judgment or non-judgmental. You see how well I write, guys? Caroline was honest with me. I wrote them a note before Christmas. She said, Ben, we can't read it. Yeah, James.
So I like that, and but I think it would be better if we frame it positively. So
Okay.
non-judgmental. Yeah, but what are we saying we are instead? Are we?
Very, very, very good point. That's a great point. Say more, James. And then I'll get you in a minute.
Well, I
Judy.
mean, you know, I don't want to put words to this, but welcome. We're welcoming, affirming.
You wanna write so they can read it? I'm sorry, I interrupted you, James. Go ahead.
Well, when we say we're non-judgmental, what we're saying is we're welcoming.
Yes.
We're accepting.
Affirming. Is that a word you use? Welcoming and affirming.
Yeah,
Accepting.
accepting, yeah, that's a good one.
Welcoming and
I like welcome better than accepting. Accepting connotes that we are having to accept something that's not quite right.
That's a good
We
point.
say more of that, Laura.
To say that we're accepting, to me, connotes that we think something's not quite right, that we have to accept.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it does.
Okay.
I'd rather have welcome. We welcome all who.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. We're with that. We welcome all who ... Go ahead, Judy.
We used to have, I think it's still around, open hearts, open doors.
Yes.
All are welcome. I think that's certainly all-inclusive, that we
Yeah.
welcome everyone. And I agree with James, that non-judgmental, yes, we need to be non-judgmental, but I like the positive.
Yes.
And I think that's that we have open hearts, open doors.
Open hearts, open minds, open doors.
Yes.
Yeah.
All
Go back.
all are welcome, or
Yeah.
somebody can word it better than I can, but.
Yeah, okay.
Open hearts, open
Go ahead.
minds. You looking at me?
Lavelle.
Do we still have the rainbow flag up there on the tower?
No, I'll tell you why I took it down. Because it kept falling down,
Oh.
and it was being blown in the wind, and it looked, honestly, it was, kept falling, it looked awful. It looked
But I mean, that would be a welcome sign to everyone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
when my son had cancer, he didn't want people to say he had cancer, point him out. I think just welcoming all or whatever is better than non-judgmental.
Okay.
So would some of this, would inclusive be a word to kind of
Yeah.
encompass?
Yes.
Yes, so inclusive is okay?
How about belonging?
Belonging. Yeah, Charlene?
I have a problem with the open hearts, open minds thing, because that came out when the church was having trouble. I never believed it, and today we see that a lot of the Methodist churches really don't believe that.
That's correct.
So to me, sticking that in ours
No,
just doesn't feel right.
I know where Charlene's coming from, because I've been there. I've been in churches that have said they were open hearts, open minds, open doors. And then I got in trouble for baptizing a baby from 2 women. And they had that actually they had that on their front of their church. I thought, well, they're not that open. So, I think that, and I don't want to stay on that subject, because there's a lot of other people, lots and lots of other types of people don't feel welcome in the church. I do want us to entertain the possibility, you have to be really careful with this too, about being specific. I don't know how to go about that without really pointing people out. Because if you just say welcoming in general, that kind of loses its impact. You know, it's kind of like when the response to Black Lives Matter is all lives matter. Well, it's not. The black people are the ones getting, killed. So, you know what I mean? If you get what I'm saying, it's kind of, when you're specific, it's kind of, has more punch.
I think inclusive is a better.
Inclusive.
But inclusive, more of a buzzword currently to include those that are excluded from other countries.
Okay, we got that keyword. I want to read you we don't want to do this one, but I think it was really creative. And this congregation actually reflects, it is not a big congregation. It's Green Street United Methodist.
Where is it? Is that the one?
It's in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I'm pulling from my own history, my past. I know the minister of this church fairly well. Let me find it here. Actually, I cut and pasted it. Let me go here. Okay, that's Haywood Street. This is Green Street. I think what they did here is creative. Our welcome statement. Welcome to Green Street, where the kingdom of God is breaking through. We practice the radical welcome of God, whether you are single, married, divorced, widowed, black, brown, white, or mixed, straight, gay, bi, or confused, transgender, cisgender, or non-binary, born in the US of A, or undocumented. We welcome you. Now, they are actually naming, when they do that, particular ministries that they have. They have a ministry for people who are undocumented in North Carolina, Hispanic people. They have a pretty good, fair number of people, LGBTQ, and they have done divorce recovery. So they're actually doing some of that stuff in that statement. So that statement actually reflects what they're doing, what they're after. So I just wanted to point that out. Okay, the next thing I want to go to is I want us to think about our neighborhood. And I want you to be honest about the parts of the neighborhood that you feel called. 97501, this area here, and Greater Medford, that you feel called to reach out to. Who are those people?
The children, the homeless.
Okay.
Ben, I see that we need to go beyond the leadership with Northwest Seasonal Workers and actually invite the members and have like a fiesta or something and have them come, the members come help so that we can build our Hispanic population, because it's here.
Yeah, don't forget, I mean, we have Umite in the basement.
Right, but I mean, to come, that's part of the problem.
And
Yeah,
what
we're down
she's-
in the
what she's
basement,
speaking
she
is
said.
undocumented work.
We're down in the basement, she said, but nobody comes upstairs.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm not a member yet.
Oh, that's fine. We know you now. We know you now.
Yeah, I love this process. I just am thinking, why would I join this church? You know, like,
And that was really why I'm glad you're here, and we need to hear from you.
it's not because of, I didn't even read the mission statement. I mean, that's not what made me come or made me stay coming. It was about everybody just being friendly and that there were, I'm going to frame this with, so my daughter-in-law goes to an evangelical church.
Okay.
Now, when I went there, I was angry and hurt because it was uncomfortably judgmental, and yet it's thriving, and I was upset and sad about that. And so when I come here, I feel comfortable, and people are welcoming, but I still see that we're all white, and so there's something missing. But at the same time, when I work with Mexicans and everything, that they might be Catholic, or they feel better around people who speak Spanish. So it's not about that. I had a point.
That's okay.
I think the point is, and I'm very cautious of joining new churches, is that they can have all sorts of things that sound like they're open. But then when you start digging, there's a tremendous amount of judgment. And
Or resistance to new
or
people.
resistance.
Yeah, I've had that experience.
And I just honor this process so much, that what you're doing, which is why I'm even here, not even as a member, but I think to be careful. Don't try to list everything, because if somebody shows up and it's not true, then it's bad. And also, we're still not going after, or I would love to see more children and families. How do we help the young families with the working moms, and not necessarily the poor, but there's a segment of the population that is poor that is really struggling. So my daughter lives with me, a horrible divorce, her children live with us, and those families need a lot of support. They might have money, but they're really hurting. And what's hurting us is when I went to that evangelical church, I thought, oh my gosh, this is what people see. I don't know how to deal with that. I don't know how to keep that at bay. As far as my friends say, oh, you're going to church in Medford, it must be evangelical. I'm like, no. I don't want to sound judgmental, but I am about that, because it actually makes me fearful. So I'm not really saying anything other than just...
No, what you're saying is good for us to hear.
It's-
What you're saying is good. I'm glad you're speaking it.
I'm just speaking it out, like I'm
No,
really
that's good.
frightened by the evangelical movement. And I think a lot of people have stopped coming to church because they don't want to be seen as being a part of that, so the only answer they have is to not go.
Now, one of our weak areas, and it's partly my age, and partly because I'm doing other stuff, is our visibility really needs to be upped, and that we do offer an alternative. And that's one reason why we're doing this, because
And that's harder to do during the pandemic.
it is. It is. I mean, one of the things in my head, and once again, I want to be really careful here, is all these government offices that we we have here. I would think that within the mission statement somehow it's worded that we embrace the government and business community, because that's where you are. You're right downtown.
Yeah.
And to find creative ways that we can fit within our energy level that includes, I mean, one of the most successful, one of the things that when we had that little thing out in the parking lot in July, we had a really good turnout, and then they called and said, well, can you do that every week? And I said, no. I don't want to do that every week. So I don't know. I mean, I just, through midday services or, I mean, would like to investigate, I'd like just to investigate it, to see the possibilities with it. You know, a coffee shop in there for the business community. You know, is it within our reach? Are there ways that we can join with other forces to do that kind of thing? That lets the business community and the government office community know that we are friendly toward them and welcome them. I mean, that's kind of, to me, part about being a downtown church.
I think that this is important also to, I know at United Methodist Women, we had our harvest.
Did you get a lot of people from the county offices
All
and
the
that?
business people came because they
Yeah,
love
yeah.
the lunch.
We served lunch and,
Huge,
yeah.
or things we need to welcome. You know, another thing that, Anita, you're mentioning like the children, like, we need to be more visible. When I was at Hedrick and I was the administrative secretary, the child became ill and it could not reach either parent because they were working or something. I knew it. I looked for church affiliation, Nazarene church. I just had to call a Nazarene church, and some member of the Nazarene church was there for that child.
Yeah.
I thought, thank
Can you
heaven
do
for
that today,
Nazarenes. But, so that is an outreach that we could be doing. It's reaching out to the children, helping the children.
Yeah.
I like the idea of a coffee shop. I like to have openness because this is where,
But once again, I am cognizant of the age and energy level here, so I just want you to be aware of that.
Let's be more
The cognizant of the
dramatic.
age and energy level we have. Right?
but I like to focus on what we can do, not what we can't do.
So, I don't want, once again, I have us drifted down into activities, and I don't want us to list
No,
those
we're not
activities.
activities.
But would you be open to, within that statement, speaking of, because of our location, the embracing the downtown, the downtown area? I mean, that is what we're at. You know, this is was one of the first churches in downtown in Medford. It was established the same year that the city was established. Did you know your church? Same year that the church was incorporated, that the city was incorporated, the church was also established.
Yeah, we had that celebration.
Yes.
Okay, what about for those longing to belong? That, you know,
Yeah, right? Don't put that down.
You know, go back to
Put that down.
what she was talking about. I didn't get a chance to. What I would like to know is, why did you come here? Why did you pick this church? Well, that's
Really,
important.
honestly,
Yeah,
because you have a gay pastor. Because
Really?
yes.
And how did you find that out?
Oh, I don't know. I was talking to my neighbor, or like I said, I still haven't really found a church. Of course, she wanted me to go someplace I really didn't want to go, but, and then she goes, well, there is one gay pastor here. We just don't think that he should be here. And I'm like,
Are you
I thought, okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
So she was so that was a sin to her. And for me, I'm all over it. And it was,
It showed our openness.
well, this defines Medford for me. It's very hard for me to be here a lot of times because I'm from Southern California,
Yeah.
open to everything. And so I think that what people like me are worried about is being in the type of church where I'm angry and feel guilty all the time. And I'm not measuring up.
Right.
And so somehow, I don't know how you guys can do this, that message has to get out to the average person like me. it's frightening. A lot of Christians are being frightened away from church because they don't want to be seen as being judgmental, regardless of what church they go to. And so it's an odd conundrum, I think.
To tie in with that is, we are all sinful. I can probably out-sinful you.
Well, and I don't want to make myself an emblem.
No, and I'm really sorry I'm
No,
sorry.
that's okay,
I
that's
laid
okay.
it out as
That's
like
okay, that's all
a
right.
pillar of why I'm here.
We want churches to
Yes.
be transparent enough that people understand that this is not judgment. That's what you're talking about, is walking to a
Well, that was the symbol for me, and I don't want, you don't need that.
I'm not offended, I'm okay.
That was like a bonus, but listen, basically, we are all children of God.
Right.
And we are all sinful.
Oh, yes, of
That's
course we're all
what-
sinful. We're all humans, but we are all children of God. And I like your thing because, when I first joined the church, Methodist church, came here because my husband was Methodist. And one person in church came to me one day and said, "You're the first French person I've ever liked." Let's judgmental there. We are all children of God, and God is a loving God.
Right.
Right,
And I think
right.
that this is what we need.
And that's what you have to offer. I guess that's what I want to shout out is, it's not because of you. It's because of what everybody else sitting in the pew, and the church represents,
Right.
is non-judgmental. And I thought, okay, then having my daughter live with me, she was from a broken home, she was struggling, she had a baby out of wedlock, all of those things I could say here, because we all know the pain of just living.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like you need to get that
Look at
out.
that. And all these things happen in a family. We're all family and we love each other. We're all children of
It's the
God.
polar opposite of what the other half seems to be doing.
All right, let's go ahead, Cheryl.
I want to go back to the serve the food to the people across the street. We already have a strong contingent of people that do that. I assume they like it or they wouldn't keep doing it, but it seems like it would just be an open path to say doing that every day, the lunch every day.
Well, I wouldn't do a lunch every day.
Well, okay, something that's going to make.
But I get what you're saying, Cheryl. Create an open path between the county, city offices.
Yeah, well, okay.
In the jail, I mean, people work in jail.
Something that's going to get them in the door to eat their lunch and, hey, every week we have a lunch, you can come and you don't have to bring your lunch, you can buy it, blah, blah, blah. And we have people that seems to be their ministry. And there need to be, it would seem like to continue it, we would need to have people that are willing to be here to eat lunch, not as servers, but just to eat and make them feel comfortable and welcome about being here in this church.
Okay.
And I know you want to move it along, but.
No, I hear what you're saying.
And the other thing going on with what she's saying, I don't know if it's the company I run with or what. They're either agnostic or they're in one of those kind of church. They don't go to church necessarily. And I have gotten more flack about, having a gay pastor, but it was even before you came,
Yeah.
that we were open to gay or, and they have really made me cringe or whatever, because I'm like, I'm okay with it, and then they, but don't they read the Bible over there? That's not okay, and I'm like, well, Especially, I said, well, yeah, he's gone through seminary. I mean, you know, he's got to have read the Bible once at least. You know, but they keep hammering that at me, and it's kind of like you've got a piece of marble and they're breaking pieces off. Who's going to come out at the end? Am I going to still be here, or in one of theirs feeling uncomfortable and judged and, you know,
Stay with me.
I could stay with you. No, I'm fine with my cats, but it's really hard because I'm asking myself, what happened 5, 8 years ago or whatever? I mean, suddenly we were nothing before we were dwindling to the point, you know, that there were hardly half of us left. What happened? And it was before the pandemic and all that.
Yeah, well, I can't get into all that now.
No, I know you can't, but I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just looking at
Right.
what can we do to say, hey, we're open and everything, and then be able to withstand any pushback.
Yeah. What were you gonna say, Rod?
You know, what I'd like to do is throw out a mission statement right now, write it down, and then we can kind of add or take away or see that vision that we're all talking about, the needy representing to the community and stuff. That's what I would like to do.
Okay.
Then we can expand it or identify areas that we need to be specific.
Okay. All right.
I have a short one I'd like to throw out.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, did you want to say something first?
Yeah.
Ron says he has a statement he'd like to make that we can maybe begin with, and I'm okay with that. Yeah, we can look at what he's saying. All right.
Is our goal to have the statement from this, or is our goal to have a group get together and take everything we said and make a statement?
That's our goal, but I am open to hearing what he has to say. I don't want to, if Rod has something he wants to say, I want to hear it and write it down. Yeah. I mean, we're not going to come out of this meeting with a mission statement.
Right, yeah.
But if Rod has something that he feels he wants to say, I say, go for it. Go ahead. All right.
That's number, sharing God's grace.
I like those words. I like us to start out with an invitation.
Okay, we can do that. If he's got something he wants to say, and then Judy.
She has to write it down.
Go ahead.
Sharing God's grace to the community. And that's what I'm saying. After I write it down, we can tweak the words to put with, the, whatever it might be. The community, the needy.
The community what? Needy.
And believers.
And be what?
Believers.
And believers?
But they may not be believers when they come.
I'm
But
saying.
guys,
tweak
we are not just, if Rod has something he wants us to write down, let's just let him say it. And he did say that he was open to us, tearing it apart, but let's just let him get it on paper, all right?
Welcome to all who enter. And that's, now you can dissect.
Very good.
Okay, Judy, you have your hand up?
Can I add to that? I think I like the welcome to all who entered. I had trouble with delineating the black, the white, the gay, the straight, the poor, I don't like those labels.
No.
I think that's demeaning. I think we need to, just like Rod said, say it again.
Welcome to all.
Welcome to all.
Yeah.
And I don't think we need to say which ones, because we might leave out somebody.
That's
Somebody
right.
might say, I don't fit into any of those categories.
Right.
So, is that?
And I hear you, Judy. There's part of me that really agrees with you. But what I want you to be aware of is just what Jane's saying. If you make this generic, then it doesn't really fit your context and who you are, then it's not really a guide and it'll end up in a file. So we are not called to do all things for all people because we couldn't possibly do that. But there are ways, without pointing out at people, that you can write a statement that identifies what you feel called to. Because a welcome sign in front of the church is great, but it doesn't really, every church has a welcome sign in front of that. You get what I'm saying, Judy? So I hear totally what you're saying, and I don't in any way want to dish it. I get it. But at the same time, we have to find that balance of being particular enough so that you actually know we're talking about us.
And a lot of places that aren't churches have welcome signs.
But you don't want to make it so generic that it's not like you betrayed our statement with another churches. Okay, go ahead.
Me.
Yeah. Who do you love at?
We need you and you need us.
We need you and you need us. Actually, there's some really, really good theology in that.
Yes.
We need you and you need us.
Well, that covers everybody, and I think that the young families with kids, they need help. They need some help.
Yeah. But to what Judy's saying, a lot of mission statements that really reach out into the city, they do have statements in that we feel called to reach out to the downtrodden. Because they're identifying that part of the city that they feel called to do. There are churches, large churches, I served one that really felt called to the family. Mm-hmm. That's what they did well. They had a huge youth program. They felt called to youth and families. That was identifying them. It pointed them out. This is what that's what they were doing well. So there's ways of doing that without, putting up I don't like that either, putting up a face in front of saying, that's the one we want. That's really uncomfortable. That's really uncomfortable. So, okay.
Can I be nitpicky?
Yes, come on, James, say it.
I don't want to be nitpicky about Rod's statement, because I love you, Rod. But the community, needy, and believers, I know there's some reaction to believers in there, but separating it makes it sound like the needy are not believers. When in fact, somebody who's done homeless ministry and mission and stuff, a lot of those people have a really vibrant faith of some kind. So I kind of want to, I wouldn't want to separate those groups to.
Yeah. So. Rod, you were really brave in doing what you did. Yeah. Putting that out there, because I don't want, I won't say it, but you were brave. Because we're all honest people here, we're already done it. But I hear you.
Well, the thing about it too, man, is that it seems though we've kind of gotten away for a little bit. We hit it here and there, and we don't have much time. We need to focus on what we are going to do.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Linda.
Well, I was thinking we should include something about supporting the planet or something with climate change, because that's what's going to attract people from all age groups.
Younger people.
The millennials, there are people.
Concern for the environment.
Concern for the environment, and that's our charge anyway, to take care of the planet.
Right.
That's true.
Care for creation, yeah.
But I really like Rod's beginning, sharing God's grace with community.
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful start.
And we're not believers.
Yeah, several of us have said that. Yeah, several of us have said that. I don't want to issue rock, but I have trouble with the word needy people. Because I don't know, I just don't like needy people. I'm always needy.
Why are we all needy?
Haven't you ever had somebody come into your room and say, God, they're so needy, I can't deal with them right now? Now you're seeing the true me.
You just want to work and go home.
True. Okay, I actually think there's enough here. And so we got our homework. I'm gonna talk to a few people afterward. Rod, you're the board chair, you're gonna really need to be with us. I really don't want more than 4, 5, 6 people. We'll meet twice a month. Well, no, we'll meet 2 more times before the next time we meet, where I'll take this, come up with something, and then with that other smaller group, we'll kind of wordsmith it more, look at it, and then we take it back to you in February for you to tear it up.
Now, is February when we are also meeting with the other churches?
Yeah, I gotta talk to them. Murray has gone on sabbatical, so I don't know how he's gonna do that. I think they're gonna have to wait till March. Yeah. Yeah, those Presbyterians, man, they take nice sabbaticals. He has. He's been here like 6 years. But still, they just kind of have, I've known several Presbyterian ministers. I'll tell you, Presbyterians and Episcopal ministers, they got the sabbatical stuff really down well. I don't know what it is about those traditions. Yeah. Well, you gave Linda a nice sabbatical.
Several years ago, he asked one pastor took 3 months and spent 2 of them in a cooking school in Ireland.
Yeah, they usually are 3 months. But they usually come after 6 or 7 years in your pastor. Yeah.
One
Okay.
thing about them is that then the substitute pastor is somebody different. You get a like who we had with Linda. It was refreshing after you got used to him to hear his.
Somebody different. Yeah, somebody different. Well, it's too soon for me to do that anyway. I'm just joking around and talking with you guys.
We can't
I've
afford
been
it.
here 2.5 years. All right. Okay. We'll take that.
Wait. Why do you get to go and wordsmith it first before you bring it to your committee?
Because I don't want to start at ground zero. They'll have the perfect say at it, but I do want to put some semblance into this. That's why. And then and give it some kind of, at least put it in categories, and then we can bring it together.
But you'll leave all of the stuff in.
What?
Is that your airplane book for your travel?
I am, actually. I'm going to be watching the grandchildren. My sister says it so well. She said, watching babies is both, she's like, her daughter pays her something to do it so they both can work. She said, it's both boring and exhausting at the same time. And she loves babies, so take it from her. She's a baby person. But she said, yeah, it's kind of boring and exhausting at the same time, Ben. Well, a few of you have volunteered, but I am going to pick a few people. Yeah, I am.
Now, we did spend so much time just talking, we didn't really name any of the type of community we are thinking.
No, we didn't. I'm having a hard time getting us to do that. Yeah, I'm having a hard time getting us to do that.
Other than the government offices.
I named that.
Well, the government offices were named, well, there's Unit A, and there's YMCA.
No, but it's what are we close to, not just who's here.
That's right.
It's what do you see yourself? How do you feel like you want, who are the people you want
Yeah,
to not just name the
Can you stand up and say that?
Without your mask.
Because that's exactly it. Stand up and say that. That's a really good statement.
We're not just supposed to, I don't think, name the people that are here in our community. Where do we feel we want to put work? And it's not like I can look at Marie and say, I know where she wants to put work. Who do I want to
Or the
support?
emphasis of the congregation.
Why do you think that would not be
Well, she and I might actually want to work on the same thing, I'm pretty sure.
But you're talking about where is the desire of the congregation.
What do we feel like?
Which was my story I began with, talking about I was in this neighborhood surrounded by Southeastern refugees. I thought, that's what their mission is. They didn't want it.
Right.
They really didn't want to do that.
Right, but we need to, what do we feel called to? And that's why we should have been shouting those things out while we were.
Right.
Because now we're all going to go home and go, well,
Right, now, and then what I was kind of like the people who right now during the pandemic that are here the most are right here, sitting in the front row. No, I'm being serious. And I see you in that kitchen, and you look really happy.
She likes to do
And I see your family in the kitchen, and you look really happy.
that. We like to do that.
That's a mission that's not taxing. That's saying, oh, we got to do this because that's what's here, and then we got to do this or else we're failing. You're doing it out of your calling and your joy, right? I mean, when I've gone over to the Kelly shelter with you, they know you all over there. You are so happy to go in there with the food that it's kind of made your day. Yeah, I get that feeling from you. So, yeah, I mean, that's what's here. So, right, and that's something you're already doing. That should be somehow feeding the hungry in our community of empty stomachs. Wording poetically something like that is something you could all latch onto that identifies you, and Judy names people, because that's what they're doing. You understand what I'm saying here? Yeah, I mean,
Open doors, open hearts, open stomachs.
I think it's because you're being, I think it's because it's like it's hard to see something in yourself without really seeing it. I think that should be in there. I think your ability to connect with people who are on the fringes should be in there. Because most of you have a hard time, you don't seem to have a hard time talking to weird people. No, I'm being serious. No, you're nodding your head. Don't you agree about this congregation? Yeah, I wouldn't use weird people, because that's a bad term. I shouldn't even have said that, because I'm weird too. Yeah, but most people aren't going to say I'm weird too. But you get what I'm saying. So, that's a theological statement. That's not talking about Wednesday meals. But it undergirds why you're good at what you can do, at what you do. Yeah.
Instead of making the needy, or include the needy if it makes you happy or unhappy, but feeding the hungry, what you said about feeding the hungry hits two things. It's the person that needs food, but also food, spiritual food.
Which
that will come.
I was part of a consortium they call the Loaves and Fishes in Charlotte. Now, I don't want to dish everything in Charlotte, because Charlotte has some amazing ministers going on. But Loaves and Fishes was like, kind of like access here, and then they have different pantries spread around the different churches. And a lot of the pantries that I would go to, the people were on the other side of the pantry. They gave you your ticket, you got your food, gave it to them. When people come to the food pantry here, Penny sits down in a chair with them and has a conversation. That is the strength. That's not something I see much of. When Judy has her fiddle group, there's real camaraderie. There's friendship there. Two little boys come in, she welcomes them, she tunes their violins, she makes sure the sound is good. Some guy whose grandfather she's never seen before, she says, oh, take a seat. That's your strength. That's what I'm talking about. That identifies you. That's not something, and so how do you build on that? You get where I'm coming from? And I don't think you guys see it in yourselves. I don't think you notice it because you are sometimes concentrating on your losses. I know I shouldn't have probably said that, but I think sometimes you do. I mean, you're good at that. You're good at that. Yeah, James.
So I mean, the language of needy is probably not good for a mission statement because nobody wants to be described as needy unless they're really needy.
Sorry, Rod. You were a brave one, but Fran, you're a good coach. Yeah, go ahead.
But I want to say that I know that you have this reaction against the word weird, but if you go north, I mean, the slogan is keep Portland weird.
Asheville, North Carolina, the same way as keep Asheville weird.
So there is a sense where when we talk about welcoming people on the margins, which is what we're all about as like followers of Jesus, it is welcoming the weird.
Yeah, I think you're making Beverly Douglas a little anxious, but go ahead, make her anxious.
So I will open my mouth now. So I have no problem with unique,
Yeah,
because we're all unique.
right.
When you come to the term weird, that's almost not acceptable.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's good for cities like Ashland and Portland.
They're really weird. Portland is what happened in Portland during the riots. It's, we said keep Portland weird, then we had riots in Portland. And I saw it firsthand when I would ride through town. The windows smashed, fires, we had some hard times this last year.
Yeah.
Anarchy. So anyway, that's why I was getting really, really quiet.
I know Beverly enough when she's uncomfortable, what she does with her stance, and she was going to do it in their cubes.
Unique, and I have no problem going and talking to homeless. There's a Stephen Camp song that says about not being afraid to go out and talking with those in need, or even going out to the battlefield, but you'll come back, and you can do that without being weird.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to put down the word weird so I remember the conversation we had. I spelled weird. That's what I thought. Okay. I just want you to remember the phrase that I keep saying to people. This world will be a far better place if I am never the church secretary. I'm never the secretary of anything. All right. It's getting late. We've been here all morning. It's time to go. Rod, will you be part of that group?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't want to ask you, Linda, because you're so busy. You can say
I have
no.
lazy days. I'm fine. I can-
Okay, all right.
If you saw me.
And I kind of want to ask James, but you've got a church and a job.
When would we meet?
We'd have to get together to talk about it.
Yeah,
When you get back.
Huh?
When you get back, you can let us know.
Yeah, we can talk about it.
I'd be interested.
I'm going to be back in the office the 19th. I get home like late Tuesday night, like midnight. Or no, I actually don't get home that late. I get home like 10. If I get, with COVID and the weather, who knows. But that's why I got all the Holden's done, because we didn't actually show up. But I should be back in the office on Wednesday, because actually I have a couple of meetings on Wednesday, so I can do that. All right?
I can't do Wednesday.
Yeah, all right, that's cool. Okay.
And I
All right.
have to apologize for calling out that I came here because you were.
Oh, no, don't do that.
I'm really sorry, that
No,
is not the way.
Don't do that. I don't preach about it and stuff just because I'm here and it is what it is. But, yeah, that's fine. I'm not worried about that. That doesn't hurt my feelings.
I'm just shocked I said it.
No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I was at a meeting when I was getting my recertification for the Red Cross. I was at the Y and there was a woman in the training with me. And she said, well, where are you, Pastor? I said, I'm at across the street. I said, Linda, Tucker was there before me. She said, oh, yeah, that's right. I don't believe in women ministers. My church, we wouldn't do that.
Oh, no.
I thought, I'm surely not going to tell you who I am. So, yeah, those things sort of go in the back of my head. I thought, oh, I hope Lily doesn't come and pick me up. Well, the funny thing about it, too, is I am so Methodist. I am so Wesley. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.